It's episode 16 of the All Things TechIE podcast, and this episode I'm joined by Ben Taylor. Hope you enjoy.
The All Things Techie podcast is a product of the Extreme Media Network. For advertising and sponsorship opportunities, please visit www.extrememedia.ie. That's XTREME media.ie.
Thanks a million for joining us on another episode of the All Things Techie podcast. And we have been doing a series, which is how people have got into the world of audiovisual. And like we even said to Mark, I think Mark Coxon's story is the best one that he studied veterinary. So can you beat that? How did you get into the world of audiovisual?
I'm probably quite a common path into EV in that a somewhat rudderless, directionless ship. Going back to school, so this year is my 20th anniversary working in EV.
Wow, congratulations.
So that's literally half my life.
You've seen it all then.
I've seen a fair chunk. So when I was at school, I wasn't a daft laddie, but I wasn't perhaps as good at applying myself as I should have been. I did learn to play electric guitar in lieu of homework and that kind of thing. But so stayed to school till 6th year, and then left school, bummed around for about 2-3 months. Mum and Dad kind of came back from holiday saying, "Oh, we've met the recruitment manager for a large DIY chain, so go down there and get yourself a job." So I did, and I worked for B&Q for a couple of years till I was 19. I'd always been into playing in bands and that kind of thing, and doing some very, very basic mixing and playing with lights and stuff like that through school. So you kind of think, oh yeah, this is really cool. And then my dad, I was 19. My dad was on the property committee for his church, and he was overseeing getting a new PA system installed. So a local Edinburgh company called Northern Lights, which a fair few folk will have heard of, I'm sure, because they were quite a big company in their day. One of their project engineers was leading that one, so my dad asked them, "Do you have any jobs going for a guy who's wasting his life working for B&Q?" So I got a name to write away to. I wrote off and didn't hear back for about 6 months, and eventually they were at a point where they were recruiting technicians. So I went down for an interview and a little soldering test, and then that was me. So that was round about I think April or May time, 99.
Wow. Okay.
And so that was me for the best part of 6 years at Northern Light. So started off as a install tech, basically learning on the job. So I spent many a long day and night in a dusty building site soldering cables and.
Well, Joe Way actually has had some comments where, when you get the intern into the job, was any pranks played on you during your internship?
Oh, whether I was sent for a long stand or anything like that, or tartan paint,
or even sorting out the cables in Len.
I don't recall, but I'm sure there were something. Typical on-site shenanigans with a bunch of electricians and and all the rest of it. So
I won't name who was involved, but a colleague of mine. Okay, actually, no, I will name him. He's the co-host, and who can't join us today. But Simon and myself, I remember when we were working on the job site, and we were soldering away at something, and then one looks at the other, is like, "Did you inform health and safety that in case we set off the fire alarms?" And we literally looked at each other and started blowing on the soldering gun with all the smoke.
Hot works permits and all that. Yeah, I don't think in the 6 years or so I was doing install stuff, I don't think I ever set a fire alarm off to my knowledge or to my memory. But not saying it can't have happened, but not that I remember. But so Northern Light was quite a good company in that there was a lot of Millennium money floating about back then, so some pretty big projects. So it was a good company to work for, in that you were kind of exposed to the various different disciplines within, not just AV, but professional lighting, sound, rigging, automation, hoist controls, you name it. So it was a good kind of learning ground. And then 2005 rolled around, and being away from home a lot was, kind of not taking its toll on a relationship as such, but, I think some people it comes easy, and other people you have to really work at things when you're away for 3 weeks and then home for a weekend and then away for 3 weeks again and all that.
Yeah.
So I got myself a job locally at the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh as their first ever EV technician was the job title.
So you were in-house now at this stage?
I was in-house, yeah. So that was an awakening as well. They were in 2005. They were 500. That was their 500th anniversary, their quincentenary year. So they'd done a lot of investment into facilities and stuff, and then thought they should really have someone that has a half an idea of what they were doing with the place to look after it. And for some reason, chose me. So.
Yeah, and how many years did you stay with the RCSI?
RCS Ed, I was there for 12 and a half years. So it was a fair stint. Originally part of the property and facilities department, and then after about two and a half years, I think I rallied to get moved into IT, because it was, even back then I could see the two were getting further and further converging and inextricably linked. Yeah, and that was a good place to work. As time went on, it became more and more commercial. The events that we did, when I first started, the events calendar was Outlook, and then when I left, we had a 77-bedroom hotel that was being expanded to almost double in size, 20 odd different meeting spaces and loads of commercial business, all manner of different things, as well as the internal sort of surgical meetings and skills labs and all that kind of stuff to look after. I remember, sat through so many different conferences and stuff, on various, a lot of it was medical, even the commercial stuff was a lot of like pharmaceutical companies or, annual meetings for different surgical specialties and stuff like that. So I wish I'd kept how many CPD points I would have earned over those 12 and a half years, because I'd have probably been qualified in something.
Like this is it. Like you start learning all the medical acronyms, and then you're in a pub or having a coffee with a mate and go, I actually know this. I'm not a doctor, but I actually know
that literally happened to me yesterday. Going out for a coffee with my wife and a friend of ours who also works at the college, and she was just talking about how her mum's got I forget what it is now. COPD. And I was like, that's chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder, isn't it? Because I'm sure I've seen it on a PowerPoint slide at some point, several times.
Yeah. And your wife was just looking at you going, how do you actually know this?
Why do
you know this type of stuff? So moving on from the RCS, where did you end up next?
So, so November 2017, I moved to be the AV and Learning Spaces Manager at Edinburgh Napier University, which is where I currently am.
Yes, so that's a bit of a jump into, well, you were in sort of education end of things, but going into more depth of higher education.
Yeah. So obviously the college was very kind of specialist postgraduate stuff. I'd been a member of LTSMG for a number of years. I think the Edinburgh conference was the first one I went to, and I've been to most since then for quite a few years. So I'd always kind of seen the university perspective at that type of thing, and got to know some good pals through that. So yeah, I'd always seen moving to a university as kind of one of my, I guess, aspirations. Mm-hmm. Having never actually, you'll notice I've never actually been a student, left school, started working. So my move to Napier was an eye-opener, more of an eye-opener than I'd even anticipated, because just everything that goes along with being a student throughout the whole student year, I had to learn that, as well as, the team and the intricacies of the role and how things have been and how organization reviews and everything, how things have changed and moved apart and come back together again. And I've been quite lucky in that I have managed to get a reasonable bit of investment for refreshing classrooms and stuff like that, and lecture theatres. It's desperately needed done. I guess that's the reason that I've been brought into Napier, is because they knew that they hadn't invested for a number of years, and they needed to do that.
And come up to speed. Now, are you working as part of a team, or are you leading up a team?
I'm leading a team, so I've got a team of 9. We've got 3 campuses, 3 main campuses in Edinburgh. So I've got an equal split, 3 on each campus. But we're the operational side, the customer-facing side for a lot of the services within information services. So, we're not just an AV team. We're not a dedicated AV team. We're we have the AV responsibility for classrooms and lecture theatres and social spaces, digital signage, that kind of thing, the traditional AV side of things. But we're also desktop PC technicians, setting up IP phones across the entire university, so staff offices, you name it. So it's a very busy team.
I have to, now that you've brought it up with all your IT end of things and the actual college, I have to ask some college questions at this stage, or university questions. Are you a Microsoft or Google campus?
We are a Microsoft campus, yeah. We're Office 365, so
okay.
Currently still Skype for Business, but Teams is gradually starting to roll out depending on who you are.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're quite...
How are you finding Teams now? Because like in UCD, we have both Google and Microsoft. Now, personally, I just love, all our emails are on Google, but I use the Office 365 for Word and PowerPoint and whatnot.
Yeah.
But as for someone wanting to do a simple meeting, I just say Hangouts all the way.
Yeah.
Is because it's a URL, a click, it works.
Yeah. Well, we're current, Skype for Business is still our current promoted service for that. We will be moving to Teams, and as I said, depending on who you are, some people have access to it. I don't have much experience of playing with Teams yet, bits and pieces, but Skype for Business, I find it does what it needs to do. I know we're using Zoom just now, and I would prefer to have access to Zoom, to be honest. But
you get tutors that have 3 or 4 different Skype accounts, and then you just realize that they're trying to contact someone with Skype for Business, and it just doesn't work.
Yep.
Welcome to my life.
Yes, very familiar.
yeah. So, have you any interesting projects going on in Edinburgh during the summer?
Nothing groundbreaking, nothing particularly interesting. Really just so in the last few months, we were too late to the party. Well, we weren't too late to the party, but we talked about the pace of things happening. Finance didn't really help with that last year, so that we kind of got to the end of summer and then got a chunk of money to spend on classroom and lecture theatre refurbishments. So trying to do that through trimester 1 and 2 was interesting. We got 5 big lecture theatres done between sort of November and into January, and then 15 classrooms done sort of early January into February. That's basically, we've got a really good integrator that we work with a lot up in Scotland, and they are happy to do like an overnight classroom install. So we hand it over to them as soon as we can in the afternoon, but sometimes 5 o'clock when classes finish, and then they'll turn that around ready for teaching the following morning.
Super.
So it was challenging to start with when we were the first round of classrooms we did. That was when we were kind of learning exactly what had to be done, and initially their appreciation of ready to teach was not quite aligned with my interpretation of ready to teach.
Yeah. So the screen comes on and the computer comes on. Okay, it's ready.
Yeah, the computer was still bolted into the previous teaching desk, not in the new one. And so yeah, it was problematic, and I was off sick, unfortunately, in January. I had the lurgy that went around everybody back then. So right at the time when I kind of needed to be there, I was in my bed at home for the best part of a week, which was horrendous. Right. So as we did the 5 classrooms at the first campus, then we did a second and a third campus, 5 classrooms on each. By the time they were doing the third campus, it was a very well-oiled machine, and it was straight in there, 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I think the guys were done by 4 o'clock in the morning or thereabouts, and then they were away, and it was all good to go, because you're very much standardized. So once you've done one, you just rinse and repeat. When I started, on a single campus, I think I counted 5 different control system vendors, with Crestron, Kramer, Extron, AMX, Procon, SY, I think was in there somewhere as well. So,
So now being able to control Edinburgh, what system have you put in?
So I'm an Extron guy. Unashamedly, when I was at the College of Surgeons, we had AMX initially. That it was okay. It fell over every now and then, and lithium batteries had to be replaced because they swelled up and all the rest of it. And the frustrating thing is the traditional programmer having to get someone in and pay them a whole heap of money to make a small change on an AMX.
This is why I keep on saying, on a university level, this is why people go down the Extron route, because they do not want to pay the programmer to come in and do all the
absolutely. I mean, I went on the AMX Programmer 1, Programmer 2 courses way back when, and the idea being that I could take an existing configuration program and make some changes if I ever wanted to. But the reality was, I'm not a programmer. No. Programmer 1 was okay. I managed to get through that and everything. Programmer 2 was a bit more challenging, but then I just wasn't doing it frequently enough to really get my head into it and maintain currency essentially. So after a while, and the AMX stuff was getting a bit flaky, and it shouldn't have been. I took a decision just to say, right, Extron had brought the TouchLink stuff out, and you could configure it rather than program it, and I was like, nah, that's definitely the direction to move. So I did that over the period of probably 3 or 4 years. Got rid of all the AMX and moved it all over to Extron stuff. And
I've heard that Crestron are going to go down that route a bit more and have a layer where you don't need the programming knowledge to go into. And now you mentioned earlier, and I'm just going to go back to it. You say, I didn't do any further education or whatever, but you do have your CTS.
Yes, yeah. So I did my CTS. So that's something I looked at CTS for quite a number of years, because I was always conscious, I guess, personally, without having, I've got a couple of hires. That's as educated as I am officially, without having gone to college or gone to uni. I was always kind of looking out for, professional certifications and stuff like that. And I remember looking at CTS with one of my colleagues at the college probably 6 years ago, and went through the test paper and everything, and went, really? It's the initial thing was that it was very, very Americanized, so the terminology was different.
Been said before. In fact, I've said it several times. Not a lie. Yes, it is.
So and looking at the obviously it's multiple choice, and so looking at the answers, and it was like, that's really kind of ambiguous, and it could be that, and it could be that, and obviously now I know that that's intentional. So I never really progressed with it, and then when I started at Napier, obviously we're members of SCOMS. I was never a member of SCOMS before, and then there's the opportunity to do CTS as a one-stop shop down at Loughborough University.
Yes.
With a subsidised rate on £500, I think it was, or something. So jumped at the chance for that, not a problem, and went through the class. That was Chuck Espinoza that was teaching that class, so it was a really good experience, exceptional, and a good laugh. A lot of other folk that I kind of know from the SCOMS conference and from LTSMG in years gone by. So it's a bunch of mates basically, and good fun. So yeah, I did the course. We were supposed to sit the exam at the end of I think it was 3 days. But unfortunately, the authentication server from Pearson VUE was lost with a courier Germany somewhere.
Yeah, I've heard of that as well. Yeah.
Despite their best efforts, they weren't able to sort that out. So I had to fly back down to Loughborough the following week on the Friday to literally sit a CTS exam and then fly home again. So
you only received your CTS only recently, then, if that's the case. It's in the past.
Yes, I did it. Was it June last year? I think it was. A really, really good course. It was more for me, just kind of formalizing a lot of knowledge that I had anyway. So when I went in for the exam, back the following week, obviously it's an exam, you're a wee bit nervous and everything, but actually I found it much easier than I expected, and I kind of breezed through it and got quite a high pass mark. So
that's super.
Happy. Yeah, I was like 45 minutes. I think I was in there, and then I was back out again. So how
do you find the AV maths in the CTS?
can I remember it? No, I mean, it's. I don't think it was too bad. Maths was never one of my strong points, but looking at it logically and remembering your different 10 log and 20 log for different power equations and stuff like that, and the inverse square laws and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's all stuff that you're, as an EV person that's been in the industry for a while, it's kind of stuff you're familiar with for the most part. And as I say, it's just putting the specifics to what you think I guess.
Now, being a manager in charge of the university now, would you try and push your team towards getting CTS?
Absolutely, yeah. That's definitely something that I've been considering and I'm thinking about. There's a couple of my team have actually had the opportunity and have done CTS before. Must be about 4 years ago, because it had lapsed and they had very or no renewal units to speak for to actually look at recertification. So that's
it's so important that, like, once you have it, do not let it lapse.
Well, that's it. I mean, it's one of the things I'm my team members that have done that, getting them to recertify, and then when you look at it, you need 30 RUs over a 3-year period, so 10 a year. That is really easy to achieve.
Well, even when you say a webinar, like with the
couple of RUs,
at least 1 RU per webinar, you can easily rack them up. Now, you mentioned SCOMS, and you mentioned that you've been with LTSMG for years and years. And I can't show favoritism to SCOMS or LTSMG. I try not to, even though I've been on panel discussions with LTSMG and I like the guys. But do you find a difference between SCOMS and the LTSMG?
I think there's inevitably a difference. I've only been to the one SCOMS conference, the one in York. I wasn't able to go to Bournemouth this year, unfortunately, because I'd already got holidays booked and it clashed with that. So I guess overall, I would say SCOMS is a little bit more kind of strategic. It's maybe slightly broader in that, sort of different learning technologies and stuff.
Give me a day in the life then of your job then in Edinburgh. Like, would it be more IT related?
It's a mixture of stuff. Obviously, as a manager for 9, there's a fair amount of the HR side of things. Just holiday requests and trying to coordinate things in that respect. I tend to be the AV design focused quite a lot. There's not really that kind of in-depth AV experience within the rest of the team to really kind of lead that AV design side of things, which I guess is why you have 5 different control vendors in a single campus. So yeah, a fair chunk of my time is spent, because there's always another little project or big project that's coming up. We've information services have been quite good and kind of broadened the outreach and kind of offered our services for, certainly within the AV design side of things, so that if one of the schools has got a certain project coming up, they're very much encouraged to come and speak to us and bring me in to sort of have that conversation around the AV design and stuff. And I guess we've had our School of Computing did a Cyber Academy had an install a nice little 2x3 video wall with Extron matrix switching and stuff like that as a kind of a cybersecurity situation room, which is pretty cool. And they did a games lab and stuff, which I was involved with. Recently, I've had we've got a creative informatics space, which is sort of in progress, and lots of little small installs for the senior leadership team, university leadership team offices and stuff, so that they've got good quality screens and cameras and stuff like that, so they can jump on Skype calls in a small group within their own offices and stuff like that. So lots of bits and pieces like that. I guess planning for summer, we've had obviously clearing and stuff with the annual re-imaging. We've got the final push to try and get rid of Windows 7 and move everything onto Windows 10, which is going to be challenging over the next few months to get that done by the end of the year, essentially.
Yeah, well, luckily enough, we have loaner laptops that I look after, that I just decided, look, if there's Windows 7 and I can't upgrade it because of the processor, we're getting new laptops. So I was able to push that in of things through.
Yeah, well, the university centralised purchasing of IT equipment into information services from procurement at the start of the year. So we now have a budget for the university for all staff machines.
Now, you mentioned there that you like the design aspect. Would you ever see yourself going down the CTSD route?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's I definitely fancy doing that at some point when I've got time to breathe and think about it. No, it's something. When I came away from CTS, that was one of my first considerations. Was, well, actually, I found that kind of a lot easier than I thought it would be, and I, sat through obviously the training class, and Chuck makes it as engaging as absolutely possible, and so you really take things in. But then after the exam, I kind of thought, so what's next then? That was not too difficult. So CTSD is a total different step above, I think. But
yeah, no, I've been told out of the three that CTSD is the hardest. Now I've got the 3 books, and then I open up CTSI. It's like, oh wait. Okay, yeah, maybe I'll go for the I before the D.
Well, I think the D would certainly be a bit more appropriate for what I do, because I'm not on the tools anymore. I try and keep my hand in with the soldering iron and all that kind of stuff. But as I say, we've got a good relationship with a particular integrator that we use for the vast majority of all of our work. So rely on them, and it's like any integrator, you need to keep your eye on them and make sure they're doing what they should be doing. And I guess the CTSI would possibly be useful in that part, but I think CTSD would be definitely the next step. So
now, you mentioned earlier on about your son's 5th birthday and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now I've thrown these quick fire questions before to other guests on the show. Father's Day, what would you want a tech toy, and what would it be? If unlimited budget.
Unlimited budget. Oh, crikey! A tech toy. A pretty awesome drone. I like a drone.
Yeah. Have you any at the moment?
I've got a few. Yeah. I have previously held my commercial permissions from the CAA.
Wow.
That was something that when I was working at the college, it was a job I'd been in for a long time, and I knew the place inside out. I knew the job inside out. You know what floorboard creaks, and you know which side of a door you can fit a cable under and stuff. Intimate knowledge of the place. So I had the brain space to do something a wee bit different. So I thought, obviously drones are the next big thing. This was probably 3 years ago or so. Started thinking about this. So I invested a bit of money and bought some drones and did all the training stuff and the practical test and all the rest of it, and got my permissions, and then kind of did nothing with it.
So you have the drones that sort of sitting in the corner.
Yeah, I did one commercial job, having spent all the money. But I think that my justification for that was right at the point where my permissions had come through. I think literally the month after that was when I got asked if I'd like to apply for the job at Edinburgh Napier.
Right.
And decided to follow that up. It was a good opportunity. I'd always, as I said earlier, I'd always fancied doing the university thing. So here was a chance. Here's an opportunity. So the drone stuff just went to the side. I didn't have the brain space to really dive into the new job and continue trying to find clients and do stuff outside of a full-time job. So
the drones are your personal toy
at the moment. Yeah.
Do you take them out flying with your son or anything like that?
I have done, but I haven't done. I've not done that for a good while now. So I should probably sell a couple, to be honest. But the technology and that side of things has come on a hell of a lot since I've been playing with them. So I think the latest and greatest drone would be a pretty cool toy to have.
Now, I think we've established that you are a tech geek. You mentioned earlier about your son wanting a tablet for birthday. Is this a good or bad thing as a parent? It says the guy that has a 2-year-old and trying to keep him away from the TV, and then I spent the past hour watching Fireman Sam on a 58-inch screen. Welcome to my life now.
Yeah. He didn't actually ask for one, to be honest.
Okay.
He's,
You wanted your 58-inch screen back.
I've only got a 42-inch. Yeah.
Okay, right.
To be honest, the tech side of things at home is not that prevalent for me. I guess I do it day in day out at work. So when I come home, I don't particularly want to mess about with tech all the time. I mean,
okay, so it's just me then. I need to go
certainly not
to
just you, but
economics.
my TV is an LG that I bought about 8 years ago.
Right.
1080p does the job for me, and I've got a PlayStation 3 that I use iPlayer and Netflix on and stuff like that, and then we've got a couple of Fire TV sticks. So,
do you know what? It's sad, Ben, that we get to an age where we go, I love to get a PS4, but I just know that I do not have time to play this PS4.
That's exactly it. I used to enjoy I was never a massive gamer, but I used to, Gran Turismo. I like my motorsports and stuff.
Gran Turismo or FIFA or something.
Yeah, Gran Turismo from 1 up to 6, well into it, and then I've not even played a game on that damn thing for well over a year, I would say.
You've answered the question about Extron versus Crestron, on which you prefer. So I'm going to throw the next one at you is AV mishaps. Because you have been in the role for 20 plus years now, you have to name one mishap that you have to say make you sweat.
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember I was working in Kuwait once at Kuwait University, and I was with Northern Light at the time. The client was in the room. I was in the control room of a big auditorium, and I was in the back of a half rack with a big Panasonic AG7350 VHS SVHS player, and it had a straight IEC mains cable coming out of it, and they couldn't get the back of the rack on, so I had to change it for a right-angled one. So I pulled it out the back of the kit.
I can see where this is going.
Yes, that is still live. My brain did not compute that. Chomp with the pliers, and I still have the pliers with a big hole in them. That made a big bang, and I'm terribly impressed. So yeah, there's been mishaps. I'm trying to think on the commercial side of things. So I've always managed to get away with things by the skin of my teeth, by and large. Somehow I've been quite lucky. I don't remember. There must have been stuff. I've had, put in a.
What's the common call from the faculty then? That you're about to admit.
I mean, there's so many things, where things just don't work when they should. Newest laser projectors that go into some sort of sleep mode and shut down their HDBaseT port, so you can't switch them back on because you're using it for control as well. And they need a firmware update just to resolve that, but they don't want to give us the firmware update, which is really handy. I'm not.
Has most of your campus gone AV over IT or IP or?
No, not yet. I mean, we will be installing GVE from Extron sometime fairly soon. We've got about 70 or so Kramer vias of different flavors. We've got the VSM server for that. I started putting in Extron streaming media processors into the big theatres, purely because, unusually for universities, we are purely single projection in the vast majority of our spaces. We don't really have any kind of matrixed side-by-side projection. Okay. So when we're using it for overflow, being able to composite the two inputs basically for camera and content and stick that as a single web feed to show on a single projector in an overflow space was the thinking behind that. So yeah, I'm not really doing anything AV over IP yet. Properly, but I think we will in the future, I'm sure.
No, it's an area where people go, wow, we have to catch up, and then you just go, I hear it's very problematic in different places.
Yeah, I think if you're doing a new build campus or something like that, as other universities have done, you've got an opportunity to really kind of say, right, ground up, what are we going to do here? And if you're doing that, within the last sort of 2-3 years, you've definitely got an opportunity.
Yeah.
When you're retrofitting it into existing spaces, we're not ripping an entire campus to bits and redoing it. So I've got ideas. I've got some concepts, and I was chatting with our rep from Extron about them just recently. we've got
have some really nice kit coming out. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I went out to see them at ISE. Flew out on the Monday and then went to see them because they were doing their demo of the new NAB stuff.
You brought up a great topic there, and I forgot to ask that question. ISE, I'm guessing you attend a lot of ISEs.
I try to go every year. Yeah.
Have you attended Infocom?
I've never been to Infocom. Nope. I would like to go one day. But
yeah, one of these days as well with myself. So, but do you find that when people find out that you're just working in a higher ed capacity, they treat you different to the private sector?
I don't know, because I mean I've been in, I guess, higher ed or specialist postgraduate education for 14 years. I was never at ISE or anything like that as a technician when I was with Northern Light up to 2005. So I don't really have the kind of the context there. So I honestly I don't know. I think they do. I think the relationships that we in higher education can have with the manufacturers is really, really important, and it's interesting to see how different companies vary and how they engage with. They classify us as end user, but I don't feel myself as an end user.
This is it.
Faculty my end users,
I've been at ISE where that so describe your role, and I'm like, well, I'm not an integrator, but I'm not an end user either. I'm looking after the jack of all.
I'm an in-house consultant almost, something like that. That's
precisely,
kind of what they are.
Yeah, audiovisual consultants, for the actual school between all the stakeholders that's in there. If you were finally, Ben, and thanks for all this, but if you were someone was to say that they wanted to enter the world of audiovisual, where would you direct them?
Oof, good one. I'd say go to an integrator. As I say, that was my upbringing into the industry was in a good size integrator, and I think the opportunity for you to see lots of different aspects of the industry from a technology perspective is a pretty good chance, and to deal. You'll be dealing with clients and that kind of thing, so you get that relationship building and stuff with different clients, and return custom and stuff like that. I think it stood me in fairly good stead, so I would suggest that's not a bad shout for someone else. That said, I am recruiting into my team just now, so if anyone fancies a learning space technician post, then
no, I was looking at that. Do I want to go out to Edinburgh? Because it's been absolute. Do you know what? It's been absolute years since I've been in Edinburgh. I think I was about 12 years of age when I was in Edinburgh. That's going back over 25 years ago. Do you know what? I was actually in Edinburgh for the opening of Scottish Parliament. That shows how long ago that was.
Wow.
1999 or so.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Long time ago.
You're due another visit then, I would say.
You just have to host an LTSMG up there.
I've thought about it. Once I've got some spaces that I'm kind of proud of and I can really show off, then
You don't need to show off spaces. You just need to throw a good party around.
Well, I've kind of thought, we've got Royal Yacht Britannia or the Edinburgh Castle. We've got some pretty awesome places that we could show
over.
That's all from the All Things TechIE podcast, episode 16. If you'd like to get in contact with the program, you can do so by visiting our website, www.allthingstech.ie. From me, Justin Dawson, thanks for viewing, thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you very soon.
The All Things TechIE podcast is a product of the Extreme Media Network. For advertising and sponsorship opportunities, please visit www.extrememedia.ie. That's XTREME media.ie.